You want to wait a second? Let Mark get that up. Thank you, Mark. Ready?
There was no on the site plan.
Well, the question on the site plan also was parking.
Yeah, is that mic on?
How about now?
No, no.
All right. So the parking, because of the town of Cicero does not have a parking standard. It was taken from the city of Syracuse. And so our architect actually checked with the town prior to making those calculations.
And what did we come up with?
I'm sorry.
What did we come up with?
So essentially our restaurant's 3,412 square feet. The total GLA is 15,544. Essentially, we're increasing. Essentially, we need for every seat, every 3 seats, one space. So we provided, there's 40 parking space provided, total required is 14. So we have a total of 52 seats.
Mark, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so Don, I see a kind of quizzical look on your face. So yes, we don't have a prescriptive code that requires so many spaces for each type of use per square foot or something like that.
Correct.
It's
Oh,
basically-
didn't we have one that was so many square feet facility required X number of parking spots?
Well, again, that is a way to do it, and that's how you typically kind of end up doing it. If you're not able to identify a specific user and that user can't come to you and say, I have, 24 employees, X number of vehicles for the business, et cetera. You understand what I'm saying? So if you can't get that information, you can fall back on published information that would be based on square footage or number of seats in the restaurant, number of rooms in a hotel, those types of things. We do have some requirements for, and we'll be discussing them later, so let me qualify what I said that we don't have it. For residential uses in multifamily residential, we do have a prescriptive code. So what they've done is looked at, and for better or worse, looked at the city of Syracuse's code and said, well, what did the city of Syracuse require for a restaurant use? And the other businesses that they have here. Yeah, and I've looked them over and they look reasonable and they're comparable to other towns in the area. I compared it to a couple other towns in the area to see what they came up with or what they used. And again, I guess the bottom line is you've got 114 parking spaces on the site. Excuse me. The calculations show there's 114 parking spaces needed. There's 140 on the site. So there should be enough parking here for this.
And that's what counts.
Yeah, in the end, you want to have enough parking spaces on the site to accommodate the uses.
Perfect. Thank you.
So yeah, so that was parking. Really not doing anything with site circulation or anything like that. You've got a signalized entrance right in, right out, also onto Brewerton Road. So yeah, so that will stay the same. And then I guess the exterior elevations are here. And I'll let the applicant.
Yeah, most definitely. So even though it looks like, so we're 27 feet 6 inches from the parking lot to the top of the ephes. That's the exact same height as Jersey Mike's
The other corner.
and Red Wing. So
And the color scheme that's shown on the screen is what we're looking at.
there, that's the existing, the property owner might switch it there. If you go to, there's an additional. the lighter version, and that's the darker version, but. So the exterior, the building is now both colors. Aside from Jersey Mike's Red Wing. So the vacant spaces are two different colors is now, so it'll be either this color. Or the one prior, depending on the landlord is currently painting the exterior.
That's gotta be specified, doesn't it?
I mean, it would be best if it were, I mean, if the board doesn't have too much of a concern over the two that are shown. I don't, one's a little brown, this one's a little more, I guess, beige or gray. I guess you could prove it with that. And he is, I mean, you can even see in this photo, it's tough, but you can see a break here. This is where the old AT&T was. And I don't recall what was over here, but there's a slightly different color on the facade. And if you look on this one, you can see back by where O'Reilly is now, that's darker than what is shown along here. So you have a mixture of colors in there, but they're all basically these neutral, earth tone colors.
Neil, would you be comfortable with specifying either two?
I think that you have a depiction, I think if you wanted to, maybe amplify it by saying earth tone colors or something of those lines. And the facade will only earth tone color, or match it, I don't know if you can match it to the rest of the building, because the building doesn't really match, right?
Well, like I said, there's
There's different colors.
I would think one of the two that they're displaying once they pick.
What's the other end that we were supposedly comparing? We wanted the other end of the plaza and this end of the plaza look like they belong together. Can we go back and look at that?
yeah, I
I'm
guess.
convinced that we've done that.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is,
Boy, you can make that Google guy work.
it was one of these two views. Got it. Yeah, so there's the existing elevation on the Jersey Mike and Red Wings corner.
Bigger than I was thinking.
All right, so your sign right now is flat where this has an item on the top that,
The ephes will match. It's hard. So when our ephes guys go, they're gonna match it to the top of the Jersey Mike's Red Wing. So it'll match.
They'll have that trim on the top.
I'm sorry,
It'll be trimmed out on the top.
100%. It'll be exactly the same.
so was there a
Most of the
reason, was there a reason why you didn't have the change in the drawing show that?
Most of the time when they do ephes, they do the foam and then they'll put the plaster on there and then they'll cut it. So I don't think that was a design. So our architect tried to find the design out there, but they're gonna have to match it on site. So, but it will look the same.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't have, it doesn't, I mean, it's got a note that it's,
You say painted to match, but
Yeah.
it doesn't say the 3D, we're talking about a 3D design. Their sign right now, they present it as flat and says Dave's Hot Chicken.
Correct. The top, I mean,
The plan should reflect that.
are
I
you
think that-
looking at the sign itself?
No, I'm looking at the top of the,
Or are you looking at this?
yes,
the
that
molding.
should be, right now on their drawing that you just showed me,
It is-
says painted, same color.
Right.
We're not talking about the color,
Correct.
we're talking about the two ends
It'll be,
looking alike.
it'll be matched identical to the top of the Jersey Mike's.
So we need to say that on the drawing, correct that, say that it will match in form.
And I guess since we're looking, so you can see here what we're talking about with the colors across the plaza, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
you know, that's a little bit different than O'Reilly's. It's a little different than Metro. It's certainly different than Jersey Mike's and the Red Wing. So,
Yeah, you can see that because that allows them to separate, that
Yeah.
much is their building, so.
yeah, I'm not commenting one way or the other. I'm just, so as to which color they're matching, whether it's this one or that one, I don't,
Pick one.
So we're talking about is the top of the facade expanding to match the other end of the end joint.
Yep.
And then.
The trimming on it, Neil. The trim on it.
And you're still gonna put a sign on the east side,
Correct.
side
Correct.
facing, even
Correct.
though with the tree and everything there that.
So it's not, again, it's not up to me. It's what the franchisor required us to do. So.
So whether you can see it or not from the road,
It's a moot point from
franchisees.
the franchisor says to do it. We have to do it for them to approve the site. So. Yeah, so the top and in one of them, it should say. You guys all should have received, do you guys have the big plans that I dropped off? There should be 9 sets of 4 plans,
They're
and I
still
believe in
facing
there.
them in the day.
It actually does say the top ephes it matches Jersey Mike's, but I think these were sent in prior. So is it okay if we say that the top is going to match identical to Jersey Mike's?
I'm gonna defer to council, but I would think so. I see him typing away.
Thinking that something along the lines of the top of the facade trim will be expanded to match the other end cap. So the trim on the top of each end cap will appear to match.
Mhm.
That's not entirely sure about the color. Back to the facade, the color of the sides of the, I'm thinking earth tone. Really used to be good in that area, but I don't know if that next to it or just giving the earth tone. Match the building.
I mean, it presented 2 colors here. I mean, I don't know if either of them necessarily specified as to exactly what they are, but again, you've got this darker.
I would note we're coming back to earth tones and O'Reilly's is red. Red Wing is yellow, Jersey Mike's is blue. And I think O'Reilly or there's a third one too, Mattress Firm. So we're probably the only business aside from the dry cleaners that actually matches the building.
Earth tone is similar to the existing.
Correct.
So Dave's Hot Chicken, you don't do drive-through?
They do. We're not doing a drive-through here.
Not enough room.
Probably about 90%.
I know at the site you can't, but that's why I'm wondering, I'm wondering why you're,
95% of the stores don't have drive-throughs.
Oh,
So,
really?
Yeah. So it's we don't start making the food until you order it. So it's not, you'll wait a little bit
so it's
longer.
more of a
for-
restaurant than a fast food.
It's more made to order. So it's not fast food. So they won't start preparing the food until you order it. So.
Any other questions?
Good.
What did we come up with for lighting for this?
For lighting?
Is there any special lighting or? we just
They're not
want to
making
use
any,
Nothing
they're not
changed.
making any
Any
changes to the site lighting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, the sign, they do have, the sign is internally lit. And I think you saw in one of the depictions kind of what it looks like. It's 3 by almost 27 feet is what they're proposing for the size.
And it looks like there's a handicap parking, one handicap in front of
Use
it.
your mic.
There's a couple handicap over here,
2 of them?
two
Okay.
spots here, and then a number of others further down. But these would be adjacent to the restaurant, and there's an existing ramp there.
Okay. All right, I'm good.
So you're saying, and the coloring of the sign would be red with white letters showing through that are lit?
Correct. It's a It's a red backing with white letters on it, so.
Okay, I still have a problem with the size of it. Cause, you know, depending on your opinion, either just your name is a sign or the whole construction, rectangle is the sign.
Well, the rectangle, we're requiring that.
I think if you look at the code, it would be, the background would be included. Because they have a background. If it was just the sign, if it was just the letters being placed up there, then you would probably just take the outline of the letters.
So it's not the building itself as being the sign that's also.
I'm not
If we-
following.
If we can, put the sign up if you would.
Well, this is a cut sheet of the sign, okay? So it's basically showing you that it's 3 feet by 26 feet, 8 inches. If you look at their elevations,
Okay,
the front of the building, well, facing the plaza area, you know, they're showing it at 53 feet. So you're gonna have the 27-foot long sign in here. On the other elevation, it's 42 feet. And so again, the same size sign would fit into this area here.
okay, so,
You've got from here to there is 12 feet, and then it's another 15 feet to the top here.
Right.
So you got a total height of this of 27 feet. Again, 12 feet to the eave, and then that's 15 feet on top.
okay. Well, it's just the size of that fascia in total is just huge.
Again, looking here, it looks a lot bigger than it is. So if you go back on the previous, that's the true dimension.
Right,
That's the true dimension of it. So it's,
Okay.
again, 27 feet, 6 inches, exact same as Jersey Mike's and Red Wing. So.
okay, thank you.
Donald, I'm good.
I'm all set.
Dominic? Welcome and thanks for sitting in for Steve. Appreciate that from the zoning office. Anything from the zoning office on this one?
No, I just wanted to remind you guys, I don't know if you knew that Jersey Mike's received a variance for the size of their sign from the zoning board. Obviously, they didn't have to come see you guys. And then I just had another thought. I don't know if you guys wanted to require signs that notated additional parking in the rear, because I don't think most people know that there is parking in the rear of that property.
That's a good point. As far as the variance, that would not be required because we have the ability to.
Because you're approving it,
Yeah.
correct? And also, is there gonna be a sign in the freestanding?
Yes, they do have one.
Okay.
They're using one of the existing, well, probably the AT&T spot right there. Yep. It's included in the package.
Mark, can you go to the aerial so we can see the parking in the back?
Yeah, it's on the site plan too, but yeah, they do have a number of spaces back here.
It's a long walk from
So,
there to the hot chicken. But still.
Employee, that way they get.
You'll be hungry by the time you get there.
Be hungry, yeah, be hungry or. Do you have any thoughts, Mark, on the additional signage for parking back there? It seems like that'd be a good spot for employees.
yeah, it would be a good spot for employees. Yeah, I don't know where you would, I mean, it's a good idea. I don't know where you would put the sign necessarily though. I don't know.
Good idea. Yeah,
I'm all set. I would know that the tenant might not even control the space where you want that sign.
right. Mark,
I'll second. I think you've covered all the items that needed to be discussed.
oh, we good with the grease trap?
Yeah, I spoke with Steve about that and they show it on the plans. Some things it may not end up exactly where they show it, I guess is the point, but Steve's aware of it and they will work through the building permit process and make sure that the grease trap gets coordinated with the town and plumbing.
Seeker, yeah.
Yes.
I'll make a motion for our standard seeker. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
Yes.
and I vote yes for the seeker. Neil, would you propose a motion for approval, please?
Yes, you're going to move for the adoption of a resolution approving the application known as JET Enterprises HC4 LLC 7901 through 7915 Brewerton Road, proposed Dave's Hot Chicken. This approval is strictly conditioned on the following. One, the color schemes, renderings, and or elevation as presented by the applicant to the planning board in regard to this application shall be incorporated by reference into this site plan and the board's approval thereof. Accordingly, the actual project must substantially conform to the items as presented herein. Two, the color of the facade will be earth tone and similar to the existing facade. Three, the top of the facade trim will be expanded to match the existing other end cap so that the trim on the top of each end cap appears to match the other.
So
Somebody like
move.
to- Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Duval,
Yes.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
Mr. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Bloss,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Good luck with it.
Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you.
When's the opening?
They're working tonight.
We're going to take the second item on the agenda, move it to last. So we're gonna now do the proposed building addition for the property at 7789 Brewerton Road. This is Brick and Brew.
Come on, fire it up, fire it up.
Good evening, Tim
Ah.
Coyer, I News and Romans Land Surveying. Yes, this is a site plan we're at sketch plan for the existing Brick and Brew at 7789 Brewerton Road. We're here to propose an addition on the south side of the building. I do have a little laser pointer here eventually. Does anybody need any extra plans? I have some 11 by 17. Okay. So we're proposing a 30 by, I'm sorry, hold on one second. A 36 by 17.5 foot addition here on the south side of the building. With that addition, we did get a variances approved for the side yard setback as this is going to be a more of a structural enclosed addition with some overhead doors on the east and west side of this for when they have tables out here in the summer, they want to have it all opened up. So understand right now there's tables out here right now in the summer, the tables all kind of out here on this patio area. It's mostly for like wintertime. They might have a few tables in there in the wintertime when they can close the doors. So in reality, they're not in the summertime specifically, you're not actually increasing the number of tables for the restaurant. They just want to put this enclosure in for winter, fall time. So we do show some new parking up here. We got some more parking back in here. We got a variance to put the parking this close to the rear property line back in February, I believe it was. We did remove parking here and here. So the existing parking spots here and here are being removed because there is this easement through here to allow for access through the site. So in the future, someday, possibly these people can get access through the site. And so this is existing copper top. So there's an easement that goes through there. So we're trying to avoid any parking in this area. That's the one big reason why we put the parking back here, along with the new dumpster enclosure right here. Overall, we have 50 existing parking spaces on the site right now. With the additional parking and losing some here and here, we have roughly 50, we have exactly 54 new spots. We lost a few in here because these existing parking spaces weren't up to code as far as size and spacing. So we brought everything to code as far as the overall parking layout, drive aisles and spacing sizes so that we have a total of 54. He does have an agreement with the neighbor up above that in the busy times in the summertime, some of his employees can park over here. It's just an agreement between him and the owner, and it's not something we're taking into account, but I just wanted to mention it.
Questions, Jim?
I'm good.
Same here. You're very thorough.
Tim's done this before.
Couple times.
The only question I had, which is, I'm always thinking about fire and crap like that. When the doors are open in the summer, there's no problem, but as I looked at the plan, the door that comes through the main part of the building, it would be the northwest corner. The other corner, what would be the back corner next to the building? If we could, it looks like the doors, if the door was open from the main restaurant, people running out of that building, they gotta make, a 90-degree turn, and it may coincide with the door that's in the addition that opens out. So I just wondered if that needed to be moved just a little bit.
Just want to make sure so this is the existing floor plan. Are you talking about this door right there?
This one right here. When that door is open. Now, when the big doors are open, no big deal,
Okay.
but I'm trying to get
see what
out of here. I just was wondering whether there's any way we can,
I see what you're saying. I'll have the architect take a quick
I
look
mean,
at it.
as
Okay.
as long as it meets code, that's fine. But
Okay.
from a fire code standpoint, it was kind of questionable to me.
I just want to make sure I was on the same page with you.
Yeah, that's all I got.
I'm all set.
Tim, was that once a drive-through through here?
At one point, it was a drive-through when it was a fast food restaurant, so it came all the way around and through, and they actually grassed in the area. So I don't know if you're familiar, this went through site plan previously before when the first Brick and Brew came in, and that was part of it, was making that grass area so that the drive-through couldn't be there anymore. And part of their previous was allowing this area to be a patio tabled area. Notice there is a fence in here that blocks cars from coming through here, and you got the grass area and all that, and you have an existing shed, so there's no way people are driving through there anymore.
I'm just wondering about this spot. Converting that to grass.
This, oh, right in here. Okay, I can take a look at that.
That's all I have at this point.
Sidewalk board,
There is a sidewalk in there.
sidewalk, right next to the fence, that sidewalk run.
So and I'll talk to him, but I understand, he's talking about just this little area right here. I'll show it to you on the plan.
Dominic, anything at this point?
To answer Don's question, I think that would really depend on where the table was inside the addition there,
That's a good point.
right? So I don't know that it's just looking at this, if it's blocking egress, right? Do we have a number for, he's mentioning additional patio seating on the exterior now. Do we have a number or layout for that?
There's not gonna be additional, it's the same.
Okay,
Relocating it.
We're just, so the number of tables, so right now in the summertime, this is all used for patio and tables.
sure.
Okay, so yeah, this is the existing setup. This is the existing layout. So this is right now, including, this is where that addition's going right here.
Mhm.
So right now there is patios and tables already being used here, and that actually goes out into this area. So in reality, they're actually going to lose patios and tables because the construction of the building is going to take away space for them to put tables and patios. So we're not really increasing capacity, except for possibly in the winter times and the cold times, there'll be more capacity because the building will be able to be used here. In the summertime, it's the same capacity.
Okay, I thought you mentioned that there would be more seating to the rear of the addition.
No, no, this is a grass area right here.
It's gonna be used for what?
Nothing,
It's just
it's grass
a,
area.
okay, overhead door to grass. Okay,
The overhead door is kind of like for letting, wind go through, like opening it up and making it outdoorsy.
so what's the total?
Breezeway,
occupancy?
that's the word I'm looking for, breezeway.
So what's the total occupancy, including the patio seating?
86.
86.
That's all.
Neil? Mark?
I think all set for now. We'll take a look. Plan, order any comments.
Okay,
Perfect. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. The next and last item will be a discussion of the preliminary development for that property on 8016 Bruton Road, our residential commercial to PUD. And we told the applicant there was really no need for them to be here. They're here at the last meeting, and we're just going to kind of review Mark's notes and comments and the process, and so this is kind of a board discussion. So Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I emailed this out, I think, to the board members sometime last week to take a look at the last meeting with the applicant. We discussed the project, they presented it. And the next step in the PUD process is for the planning board to review these, these concept plans that have been prepared and to give a report back to the applicant. And so that's what this is. We kind of skipped this step last time, and I think that may be part of the issue we had with the applicant relative to some of the issues that came up, is that we didn't clearly communicate our concerns and what we felt about the plans to him before he went in and did detailed plans. So in an effort to both comply with the requirements and to hopefully be a little clearer as to what the board feels, prepared these comments and, for the board to review and comment on and eventually hopefully come to a consensus and, give this back to the applicant so they can continue on with their detailed plans. So the first part of this essentially, quotes the portion of the code that describes what I just mentioned and gives the criteria that we're supposed to be looking at. What they're supposed to be providing, proposed site plan showing building locations and land use areas, which they have done. Proposed traffic circulation, parking areas, pedestrian walks, a proposed landscaping layout. They have landscaping on there. I think, at least so you could get the idea of where the landscape areas are and what they'll do with them. And again, there'll be more detail as they progress. Construction sequence for building, parking spaces and landscaped areas, and then the availability of existing and proposed utilities, schools, parks, and playgrounds. So that's the criteria that the board is supposed to be reviewing this initial preliminary development plan against. So then I go on just to basically, indicate what we're reviewing, which really is this plan here. And then the rest of it, again, are my thoughts. And basically what I did was I took a lot of the information from the previous recommendation to the town board. Now, this one's a little bit different in that it's got the mixed use and the hotel. So it's not purely a residential project, but this was my attempt to, put together comments to the applicant and really looking to get the board's feedback on this again, so we can pass it back on to them with the board's thoughts. We'll note a couple items on here, which are, so let's say three or four of them I think are good ones. The traffic impact study was done originally for the residential uses. When I initially drafted this up, we did not have the updated traffic impact study. The same could be said of the sewer capacity for the project and parking information. They showed the parking, but they didn't provide the basis for the parking that they provided. A day or so after I sent that out, we did receive that information. And I think Heidi just distributed it maybe today. Yeah. So the board hasn't had a chance to look at that. I have taken a look through it, and I would say it's what, so not having that, when I drafted this up, what I basically said was, these are issues of concern. You know, do we have enough parking? Do we have enough? Can the traffic be mitigated? Is there sewer capacity available? And not having at that time, not having anything from the applicant to say whether or not that was adequate. What I did was the first part of this, number one here, essentially indicates what the proposed uses they are and what the square footage or number of units or number of rooms in the hotel are. And basically for those items where we couldn't say whether or not, this would work with those, basically said, this is okay, what you're proposing, we're good with it. But if there's not sewer capacity, you will need to reduce your density so there's adequate capacity and or do a mitigation to provide adequate capacity. You could say the same of parking. You could say the same of traffic impacts. Because I think, again, we have that information, but the DOT is going to have to review the report. That's probably because it really impacts their facilities and all the timing of the lights up and down 11. So that's probably going to take some time. The sewer study, I think I've been in contact with Kate Fiorella, the town engineer. She's got some thoughts or concerns about that. We'll be setting up a meeting with the applicant to review that with them. So there may be something needed to be done beyond this, or again, the capacity or the density may need to be reduced. And the parking, I've got a few thoughts or comments on that we can review tonight. So I think that approach still may be the way we want to go, particularly with the traffic, because we don't have that information. I know the applicant's looking to move this along. I don't think we said that we would have this ready for tonight's meeting, but if we can work everything out between now and the board be able to take a look at this along with the new information that's been provided at the next meeting, maybe we'll be in a position to, basically adopt this and pass it along formally to the applicant. So I guess I've talked a lot there. I'll let you guys ask questions or give your thoughts.
Nice job in putting that together, Mark. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Jim? Questions or comments?
With regard to the road maintenance, there was some issues with that. Some of it's town, some of it isn't. Some of
So-
it will be maintained by the town, some won't.
So the way this has been drafted up is similar to the last time we made a recommendation, which would be that the town road would only go to the connection with the Lincoln Drive area. And so that would be the end of the town road at that point. So the remaining roads on here would be private roads that would not be operated and or maintained by the town. Another of the recommendations is that connection be made to the Lincoln Drive area with some thought, some additional information that but the town board should contact residents, see what they want. Should it be one way? Should it be signed, et cetera? So this again is just a recommendation. And again, it's based, a lot of this is based on what we did with the previous recommendation. So if someone feels that, something has changed since that point and would like to see the town road go further or include more or less, again, that's what the purpose of this discussion is.
Okay.
Thoughts on that, Jim? I kind of like it going to the Lincoln connection. And then they take over responsibility from there,
The
the
developer would.
property management.
So it would be a matter of them they would have to supply some specifics as to what they would be doing with it, right?
We've asked for the snow removal detail from them, right? That's in here.
Yeah. When you say what they will be doing with it, what do you mean by that?
Well, they would have to have their own private company or whatever.
Yep, yeah, they'd be responsible for operation,
Be
and
respon-
maintenance, snow removal, yep.
Right.
If there's potholes that.
And there was a
develop-
whole issue
Yeah.
before with the snow and what they were gonna do with it and, you know, where they put it and.
Yeah, and so in this plan, in the previous plan, they had some areas that seemed to be pretty problematic for snow removal, because essentially what they had were garages with very minimal separation between them on both sides of an alleyway. So if any vehicles were parked in the road and there was basically minimal or no green space, it just seemed that didn't lend itself to any sort of real area for snow storage.
Right.
So I think that was one of the main concerns, or one of the main areas of concerns for the snow removal for the previous plan. This plan eliminates that. This plan, for the most part, has your traditional parking lot type layout and parking areas. And a little bit of parallel parking for some of the commercial areas. And then a more traditional driveway / garage for the townhomes. You know, so in my opinion, this particular layout, you know, it brings us back to a more traditional type layout. And again, some of the areas where there was concerns about snow removal are not proposed as they were previously.
This is more reasonable. in other words.
It's more, yeah, in my opinion, it is.
Okay, I'm good.
Chuck?
Well, I do say I kind of like this plan better than the original plan. I like the idea of the going towards the village center motif. I'm curious on
Chuck, can you,
there's some question on the number of units compared to the original plan units. That was about comparable. Or was it 300, 275 or something?
I think they were in the, where'd we end up? In the 330 total residential units last time, I think, somewhere around there.
I think so.
And right now they're proposing, looks like around, what do we got? 8,400, so 202, 224, maybe something like that.
And that's without
But
counting,
they've added-
Plus the commercial.
But yeah, well, but then, so yeah, so there's less of the residential units, but there is the commercial space and then the 110 room hotel. Yeah, so that's where that's been. And again, I just did that math quick, but yeah, I think that's pretty close to being correct.
and you know, considering it'd be commercial usages and hotel, they'd be bringing in more people that don't reside there. So that would kind of be an increase, I would say, in the traffic.
Right, and so that's why they've prepared the new traffic impact study that takes into account the trips generated from these types of uses. You know, I think part of what you would find is that the residential uses are going to peak in the very early morning, you know, or 6 to 8, typically 6
Sure.
to 8, 4 to 6 is when residential
Right, traffic
uses
times.
peak. You know, a hotel, I don't know that it has a peak necessarily. It's more spread out through the day. Maybe people in the morning are leaving, but they're probably not getting there. You know, so you've got people exiting, but you don't necessarily have them entering.
Sure.
You know, and in the evening you might have people showing up, but some might show up at 3, some might show up at 8 at night. So that's what the traffic study will take account for. And the same with the retail. So the retail is going to be, you know, more likely busy from 10 to, you know, late afternoon or early evening. So you
Sure.
might have a little bit of overlap with in the evening traffic, but the morning traffic, the retail, I would guess, is going to generate very little traffic.
So the studies will show that.
But the
of
study will
course.
show all that, exactly.
Sure. And the other comment is, biggest change I see in looking at this is where the auto dealer was. Now that's blank.
Hmm.
I wonder if there's been any.
Well, that
plans
was
on
never
spreading-
really part of the project. I mean,
Correct, yeah.
they're getting the property from them, but it was never part of the project.
Just wondered.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Snyder.
Well, I think there's no question that that in my mind, this is a much better layout for many reasons. The fact also that they this time added another exit or entrance into the space by going behind the car deal. I think that was an excellent idea. Do we, if this goes forward and the PUD is approved, does the planning board see this project after that?
The planning board, with this recommendation, this is the preliminary development plan. What this recommendation basically says is that so the town boards looked at this, referred it to the planning board. The planning board's now reviewing the preliminary development plan, saying what we do and don't like about it. And then the applicant takes that information and develops their detailed plans. So they will come right back to us as soon as they're able to get that information put together. And you will see this again with much more detail.
Site plan.
Much
review.
more detail, basically a site plan review, exactly. And then, similar to last time, after that review is completed by the planning board, we make a recommendation to the town board. The town board then holds a public hearing on the project, and they are ultimately the one who would approve it following that public hearing.
So for example, if I have a concern about, I'd like to make sure the roads all have curbs. I don't have to worry about that in what we're doing right now, correct?
You don't have to, but if you want that, we could add it to the recommendations, certainly. I mean, if there's a type of curbing or if there's areas where you specifically want it, if you want it everywhere, then yes, we can add that information in.
Yeah.
So that, again, that's kind of the purpose of this, is to get those types of things out. So the applicant knows what to do, and he doesn't come back with a set of plans that, if that's something that's important to the board, that doesn't have curbs, and now he's got to go and revise them, right? So the whole purpose of this is to try and guide them into what the planning board would like to see.
Well, I happen to be a lover of curbs because it makes sure we have control of water flow. They're easier to keep clean as far as using a street sweeper, which obviously, because we aren't going to have to do it, meaning in town, but they're going to have to do it. So that'd be one thing that I would like to see. The other thing I think we got to be a little more specific on is what roads are theirs and which roads are ours, because you got to remember the town is sitting in a truck, a big truck. And if the connection to the next neighborhood there is where we're going to make the break, then that sets up some criteria of what that road will look like. It needs to be available to the plow guys in the winter. So, they have no problem going the wrong way on a one-way,
Well,
but
yeah,
we got to
so-
think about that. And that's why I made what I thought was a stupid comment, but a possibility.
you were
If
talking
the
about here.
If the four corner was a circle.
Yeah.
Then obviously our guys come in, drive around the circle, drive out, and they're done.
So with the current recommendation, so there's the entrance that's shown here.
Yep.
Into the Lincoln Drive area, right?
Yep.
So this would be town road up to here.
Yep.
You could, again, either enter, exit here, do what you need to do, come out. If it ends up being two-way, and go down there. None of this would be the town's responsibility. So the town trucks aren't gonna go past here. They're just gonna either come in or out of that area and stay on. The only new portion of public road that would be the town's responsibility would be from here to the traffic light at Route 11, traffic light at Route 11. So anything that happens back in here is not the town's concern
Right.
in the way it's drawn up.
And the concern I have is, it would be nice if the highway department superintendent and his foreman agreed with what we're thinking about, where the cutoff is and how, can you make that work? You just made it work. So the question is whether they would agree that that is a possibility, and therefore I don't want to create another problem for our highway people. Maybe in that area, they might use a smaller plow because of the small area in that whole development anyway. So that may, again, minimize their concern, but I think the highway department ought to put their 2 cents in with that one.
But again, the highway department shouldn't be back there.
Right, right. I mean, as long as they can get in or out of what we call their plow area.
But
Yes.
where the cutoff is though,
Right.
they've got to have a place to dump their snow and turn around and get out of it.
They don't have to, that's my point though. They don't have to turn around and get out because this is a through movement. You're just moving through here over to here. There's a road that would connect this road to the town. road.
Okay, so they're just gonna
So
pick
it's
up,
just like.
they're just gonna
plowing
pick
any
up their
other
stuff and,
Thing. You might be leaving a little bit of snow as you make the left-hand turn, into that area. You probably have a little bit coming out at the outside, there's a way to do that. They can plow it into a corner or something. So,
but they'll have a place, they'll have a
yeah,
place.
but
to
they're
keep
not,
going.
I guess what I'm trying to explain is you're not going in and backing out. It
Right.
is just like any other good highway network where you're just traveling along and, taking right-hand turns, left.
Presumably.
Et cetera. Yeah.
Presumably, if we put that cut through. in.
Presumably.
Yeah, if this is how it works out. If it turns out that the town board or this board or decides not to recommend that connection, then accommodations for a turnaround will need to be made. So that's to me, a con in not having that. And, having that connection. Having that connection gives you better movements for emergency vehicles, the snow removal, all those types of things. So,
The other thing as we were talking before the meeting, I think we need to consider a number of electrical charging stations for the coming electric car. We have a lot of people are going to be living in this area and with no way to charge their cars, they really can't buy electric cars. Now, I don't have an electric car because where I live now, there's no way to charge it. And I don't want to drive to one of the local places to charge it. So if this is a community for the future, I mean, I don't agree with Washington totally where whatever they're saying in 2030, we'll have nothing but 50% of our cars will be electric. I don't believe that, but I may not be old, long around here enough to see that anyway. But I think that ought to be one of the things that include in our suggestion for the developer.
I put it down in the notes and we'll add that.
I'm good.
Good info.
Hmm.
Nancy, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to say that my understanding is that the cut through to the Lincoln Ave properties is not a definite in any way, whether it's one way, two way, or that it's even there. A lot of the residents did not like it. So I just want to make sure you guys were aware of that, that we're gonna probably go back and find out, what do they like, what do they not like? That's another good point. You can say, well, you should have it because it will help with this also. But I just want to make sure you know that it wasn't a definite, that was
Yeah.
gonna be there, that exact spot and.
If it became a locked gate, we could just require a hammerhead at that location, so our guys can come in and plow into the hammerhead like we do on dead end streets in some of our developments.
And there's a lot of options. And again, if this board doesn't agree with that, then these recommendations could be changed. They're your recommendations. Again, I just based it on the previous ones. And the recommendation to Nancy's point, says we recommend it, but check with the neighborhood to see what they feel about it. Again, I think there's a lot more positives to it than negatives, but again, that's my opinion. I don't live there, so it really should be their decision. And again, if that doesn't happen, the plan has to change, then they'll have to work that out. That's
Yep.
where it is. So, so again, we're not doing anything different and we're not saying it. We're saying presumably, we think it's a good idea. And the town board though has the ultimate decision. And so, they could do their diligence with the neighborhood.
And when we say it's a good idea, we believe it's a good idea for the residential neighborhood,
Yeah, I mean,
not for the development.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
Benefits are all for them. And for local traffic only, if we have to set a police officer there once in a while, or but you know, if they're in Wegmans and they want to go home, they don't have to go out on Route 11. If they're at home and they want to head south on Route 11, this may be their best option to be able to have that traffic light.
I mean, one of the main things we hear, obviously, is complaints about traffic and how difficult it is to get out onto Route 11. Having this connection will give this neighborhood a signalized entrance to get in and out onto Route 11, which is much safer than trying to get through those gaps and go across, you know, 3 lanes of traffic.
Well, it may be different too now that we have the other entrance. So people from that neighborhood could drive to Wegmans
Yeah.
without going on Route 11.
Yeah.
And I think so if we, when somebody meets with the community, if they give good information, non-partial,
Yeah, and you know, that entrance or connection was there before, but the piece between there and the plaza wasn't. I think it's a
Right.
fabulous thing that the developers stepped up to work with Wide Waters and to provide this as part of the initial part of the development. It is another very positive improvement over the previous plan.
much.
Agreed.
It'll connect from Walmart to Marshall's.
Yep.
Yep.
North and south, yeah.
And in the recommendations, it says that should be completed as part of the first phase of development. So when they open, that should be in place.
So they can go get their coffee at Starbucks and never go out on Route 11.
So
That's progress.
Don, you said?
No, I got a question. The size of this development and everything they want to put in there, is that going to have a further bad effect on our water? We know from experience that the pressure is lower, and just like in the highway garage, we had to go the extra expense to put a booster in to get enough water just for the highway garage. Now, with a complex like this, the consumption I'm sure is a lot greater than what we have down there. Of course, you know, they calculated it in case of a fire or everything. Well, what about these people? In case of a fire, how do they figure how much water is going to be needed by a development like this? Is there sufficient water supply? What, maybe coming from Route 11?
Probably.
yeah, I mean, the water mains would come off of Route 11. I don't know the ownership of all the water mains within the Walmart Plaza, but I would certainly want to see that water loop around and connect in there so you don't have a dead end main.
Yes.
You know, you might have the possibility, I do believe, just from my recollections, that the water lines in the Wegmans Plaza are contained within easements and are under Aqua's control. So that's a potential, you know, area where they could connect and loop, because looping the systems as opposed to dead end creates a better flow and it keeps your pressures, better pressures.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the developer is going to have to work with, you know, the water authority to get adequate water service, you know, into this area, into the plaza.
Would that be something that we would require? Say, look, you have to show us in writing that Onondaga County says, yes, there's sufficient supply, or?
Well, if you want, we can add an item in here that,
What
you
do
know,
you think, Mark?
indicates that, you know, that the Aqua's been contacted and, well, so the question becomes, do you want them to provide that prior to giving this recommendation, or do you just want there to be a recommendation in here that the applicant, you know, when they come back with the final development plans, you know, provide information indicating that adequate water supply is available? Yeah. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, I
So do you
do.
want the answer now, or do you just want to say, I want that answer when you come back?
As long as they know we want it. It's up to them if they want to do that first or.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
we can add that.
No further questions.
Does this preliminary need formal approval by the planning board?
What we can do is you're gonna basically amalgamate all the recommendations tonight into your overall recommendation. Once we have that, then we can adopt that at our next meeting as a finding. And we can make the recommendation for approval, preliminary, because site plan approval or anything like that. It's just kind of a green light for them to move forward. And we would say, part of our recommendation, we adopt the findings and they'll be published. Adopt the findings, and then they'll be delivered to the applicant. At that point, the applicant will move on, will be in a position to move on to the second phase of this, which is more detailed.
So the applicant could, the meeting after they receive the findings that we do, the meeting after that, if they agree, you could get a basic approval if that's what the direction we want to go with the project.
Well, this is the basic approval. So this is the basic approval of this preliminary development plan.
Mhm.
And right after the applicant receives that, ostensibly they'll go to work hard on final development plans. Submit those when they're ready. And then we'll have a much more detailed review at that time and put together a whole new set of recommendations to the town board at that time.
So all you're doing is saying the concept, that's approvable. But it's approvable with these, conditions that we would like you to look at.
So when do we tell the town board that we think the project is, a go or a no-go?
After review of the detailed development plans.
So soon as
After site plan review.
Then it goes up to that.
And that'll be a number of meetings, I would presume.
So, yeah, so this recommendation is going back to the applicants, so they know what you're looking for as they develop those detailed plans. You will be able to review those detailed plans, and I'm sure new things will come up, and we'll work through those. And again, ultimately, you make your recommendation to the town board.
So even though it's just a recommendation from us, it's a multi-step
Yes,
process,
absolutely.
even given the recommendation.
Dominic, anything? Thank you. Yeah. So Mark, you have some updating to do?
Yeah, I do want to discuss one more thing.
Sure.
So again, the parking counts, I didn't have them when I initially sent this out, but they did in the most recent plan that, again, that you guys probably haven't seen. They do have parking counts. And they generally seem reasonable, but there's a couple things I wanted to point out. The parking count for the senior apartments and the townhouses. So, okay. There we go. Okay, so the senior apartments over here. So they say 172 spaces for the senior living apartments. That includes these garage spaces. Okay, and so I know last time we said we weren't going to count the garage spaces, but that again was, I think, mainly because of the flats area where they had a surface space directly in front of that garage parking space.
I wanted to count the driveway and the
Count the
garage.
driveway and this. In this case, they're not doing that. They are just simply counting these garages. And we have heard from the applicant their explanation as to how they control that. I'll and I also know there's also some skepticism about that. So I want to point that out to the board as to whether or not, again, the purpose of this is to say whether we feel we want to accept that or not. And if we say, no, we're not going to count those garages, or, you know, if there's I don't know, 2, 4, 6, 7, 14, you know, if there's 40 spaces in the garages here, I don't think that, again, I'm just throwing that number out. You know, if we just right off the bat say, yeah, we're going to count those garage spaces. Well, they might come back with a plan with 100 garage spaces. Right. You know, because we're not necessarily saying, so we might want to say, you know, you've provided 40 garage spaces and, you know, out of 172, and we think we're okay with that, but we don't want to see 150 garage spaces out of 172, something like that. Again, I'm just throwing out some ideas for you.
Yeah, but would they be in compliance with the preliminary approval if they did that kind of a change?
Well,
I would think not.
again, I'm just trying to
I know.
think down the road and say, you know, what could change? What could change between now and then? Again, this isn't a final approval. It's a preliminary set of recommendations. But I'm just, again, I just want to point out some of the things where we got into, you know, discussions with the applicant last time, and you know, we had some disagreements. And so I'm trying to just head those off. So both we're expressing our thoughts and the applicant knows what direction to go in. And again, and can make the decision as to whether or not he wants to comply with that. So, you know, so again, I just want to point out that in that count, they're counting those, you know, this number of garage spaces. And again, is that something the board is good with?
Now, the townhouses have a garage,
Townhouses, yes. So the townhouses, again, count the garages also.
but do they have a
Um,
separate parking space?
Actually, to me, it's difficult. I'm not sure how they're counting their spaces for these townhouse units, because they have a count for them, but they don't really show where those spaces are. They're saying there's 1.5 per townhouse. If I were to look at this, I would argue there's 2, because you got the garage and then you've got the space in front. They may be in, overall, they have an excess of parking over in this area. So maybe they're counting some of these from over here. They haven't really delineated well where the townhouse units are. But to me, these are pretty much, you know, a standard townhouse layout, right?
I mean, what
where
it looks
you-
like though, Mark, if they
Oh.
say 6 units, 2 stories. And if you look at the spaces in front and you count that fat one there as 2, looks like there's 6 spaces
There are.
in those openings. But that means 6 spaces, but no way to get halves. So.
There-
Your
Well, and
second-
that's
your
my
second
point.
car is parked across the street or something.
Well,
And there was a
I guess
whole
what I'm
issue
saying is,
before with
you've
that.
got one space here and one space in the garage, because you can see the little. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6
Right.
garages,
Garages.
6 driveways. So you could say that's actually 2 spaces per.
No, we said you can't use
Well,
a park, you can't have a parking spot in front of a garage.
And that's fine.
Right.
So that's why we're talking this through. Right? So I agree with you. I really only see 1 space, if we're not counting the garages, per townhouse, unless they're saying that some of these spaces over here are included in that count. So I think maybe we need a little bit more clarity on how they're coming up with that, so I can talk with them about that and get a better understanding of how they're coming up with the count for the townhouse units. Because I had the same, I'm struggling to say the same thing. Unless this is long enough for 1.5 cars.
Mark, wasn't there a whole issue with that before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but again, this is a little different. With the apartments, with the flat units, these I believe are just senior townhouses. Right? With the
Getting old.
other
They're all
ones,
55 or older.
yeah, I'm there.
That's what they said.
And but what it does is, so that's a little different to me. And again, you can make a decision than the market rate properties they had, that were age restricted, right? Because we all, we know the situations, roommates, et cetera. To me, there was the possibility for more cars and more disruption because of schedules being different, et cetera, than a senior couple or a senior single who might be living here. And if they have 1 or 2 cars, I think they could work that out better than, or easier perhaps than. So it's a slightly different situation than it was to me, than it was with having those spaces in front of the market rate. And again, here you do at least have some, green space in between for, snow, pretty typical for a townhouse layout.
Yeah, the thing it's a changing world. And there are developers right now that are doing nothing but building rental developments where it's,
Yeah.
and that's what the people want. And so, I'm perplexed when we come to parking. I don't really see a couple both working, having only 1 car. They say, well, the buses, communication, that kind of stuff will change. Well, I've been in Syracuse for a lot of years and I haven't seen the bus expand and really take people's thoughts in mind. So I don't know whether 1.5 will do it. I mean, if these are all 50, say that all of them are 55 or older, they're still working for possibly another 10 years. So
Well-
they probably got 2 cars.
Right. So the requirements, yeah. So the requirements are that 2 parking spaces be provided for each, this is based on the town's code. Is that a minimum of 2 parking spaces be provided for each multifamily unit with up to 2 bedrooms. And a minimum of 3 spaces be provided for each multifamily unit with 3 or more bedrooms. And the multifamily that you're talking about there is in these buildings here, and they've accounted for that. So they've given us a breakdown on the number of bedrooms in each, how many are 2 or 3 or 1. And then they've done their parking counts accordingly per those requirements. So that's what I did check. That's why I'm pointing out is that, so they have enough parking spaces here for that, plus the commercial area. What the recommendations again saying, again, these are your recommendations, but I'm just basing this on what we did previously, is that it says a minimum of 1.5 spaces is recommended for the senior units. So that's how they've calculated the number for down here is based on 1.5 per the number of units that they have in there. And that's the senior housing. And it's still 1.5 here. But again, ostensibly it's 2 if you count the garage and,
And the hotel, they probably figured 1 for 1.
it's, yeah, right. And that, again, I looked up, other requirements and some standards, and it's 1 space per,
room.
per room.
How is it 1.5 without the garage?
Well, well, that's what I'm saying. They've indicated how many spaces they need.
Yep.
And they're saying 1.5 per, but I don't know where those 1.5 are, because to me, I don't think these driveways are long enough to stack two cars. So it's
Yeah,
not 1.5,
and that's
but
not-
that's what our requirement is. So,
The half is supposed to be every two house equals
yeah,
one.
I mean, we could change this to say that they need to provide 2 spaces per the townhouse units. Because how do you provide 1.5? You know, 1.5 over here, right, in the big parking lot, that kind of works out in the numbers. If I say I'm providing 1.5 per townhouse unit, but I'm only showing 1 space, and then I'm gonna count another half space over here.
Who
or
doesn't
something.
mean that you park a car
Yeah.
in front of your garage door, so the husband and wife gotta play tag team with the cars.
Well, so I guess, to get back to the beginning, are we one, and I don't know if I need a decision now, but one, are we good with counting these garage spaces in this for the senior apartment area?
I don't know, we have a lot of garages in my complex and a lot of them are empty. People have their cars outside and they brush snow off. I don't know why. I have 2 cars, I have 2 garages.
It's a bit of a walk.
Yeah,
Well, if we say no, they're just gonna make these into parking spaces, so people are still gonna have to walk. I mean, I guess is what I'd say there. I mean, you can only have so many in the space that's available. I mean, you could reconfigure and maybe get it closer, but you're only gonna get so many spaces. You follow?
well, didn't he say these garages are only for the senior living
Those
apartment
garages are only
people?
for the senior living, correct?
Yeah, I think we want the garages. The 172, is that like right at the minimum? Based on what we require?
They say there's 114 units there, so 61. Is that right? No, got a little bit less, 50. Yeah, it looks like it's pretty close to the minimum.
Can we say 75% of the garage? Something like that.
Some kind, you can give them some kind of limit, some kind of percentage of the parking spaces.
Well, again, so they're
No more than a third would be.
18, 25, 32 of the spaces right now, they're showing as garages out of the 107.
I'd rather see the garages than not.
I'd rather see the garages too.
But at the count that we're looking at. Not beyond that.
Well, they'll provide the minimum. It's just a matter of whether we want to include that number, the garages in that 172. So right now, again, they've got, whatever I just said, 32. So they have 140 surface spaces and 32 garage spaces. And that meets their 1.5 per unit.
I'd
Now,
say
if-
yes.
if we-
Yeah, I'd agree.
It's only flip a coin.
You know,
Well,
so
again,
yes,
I-
we'll count those.
Okay, we're good, but we don't want them to increase the percentage.
Correct.
Really.
Correct.
Okay. So that takes care of the apartments. What do we want to do about townhouses? Again, if I look at, if I count all the numbers of spaces and 1 per here, I mean, they have the number of spaces, but to me, spaces over in this parking lot, and I assume if they tried to say that they were going to use these spaces, we'd have a pedestrian connection here, that type of thing. But as a base argument or base point, we're willing to count the garage spaces down where the apartments are. Are we willing to count these these garages as parking spaces?
No. They're different. They have a-
Okay, and
they
no,
have a driveway in front of them,
and it is. So, okay, so that's the answer.
but I'm just me.
Well, see, the trouble is they're saying that their method of operation is if you got a garage and your door's open when they drive by and your car isn't in there, but it's full of stuff, they're gonna come after you and, write you up and all that kind of crap. So,
Yeah, but that's not the issue. The issue is that there's a driveway in front of it where somebody's gonna park. Like you were saying, you gotta,
Yeah.
Get out and-
But that's one rather than two, right?
yes, that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so here, for these townhouse units, I mean, again, because since these driveways aren't, 50 feet long or whatever you want to
Right.
have to be able to have two vehicles there, right? You've got one. The only way to pick those up is either to do, parallel parking in front of the, the houses here, or designate some of these spaces over here and provide a pedestrian connection.
Or less units might work.
Well,
Well, the spaces that are in the adjacent lot across the street from them would tend to be the less used by the people that are in those buildings that are adjacent to those parking spots. It's just gonna be a little pain in it. I'm gonna walk out and my car's in that spot across the street. I'm gonna walk across the street, across the grass, across the snow to get to my car to.
or again, they could redo this streetscape and provide parallel parking here, and then, these are private roads, so, they could provide parallel parking here. And I'm sure you'll get up to the 1.5 per unit if they do that. So I think we throw it back to them. I
That's
think
their
we need
problem.
to,
Yeah.
I think our comment is, we'll count the garage spaces for the apartments. We will not count the garage spaces for the townhouse units, and they need to clarify how they're meeting the 1.5 per townhouse.
Yep.
Per
Yep.
townhouse.
Good.
Yep, I agree.
That's all I had.
Anything else after the discussions we had? Everybody's good? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Meeting is adjourned. Good night, everybody.
good job, Mark.
Thanks, guys.
You have to report in the meeting.
I think that's recording. I think they can make it. I think they can make it. Because reducing the townhouses still isn't going to take care of the issue. It's the driveways either get longer, or you provide street parking, or maybe you designate some across the street. Yeah.